When I was a baby, my mom fed and clothed me and taught me to speak. By the time I reached high school, I figured her job was done. For the next 25 years, I saw Mom as an older version of the young woman who had raised me. My attitude changed on her 70th birthday. The catered party was attended by about 80 people, most of whom I had never met. One by one, speakers stood up and showered her with praise. Afterwards, many of them came over to me, eyes moist, and told me how lucky I was to have her as a mom. After that, I decided to pay closer attention, not to who she had been, but to who she had become. We began a new ritual. Every week we spoke on the phone. When she said something that triggered defensive feelings, I breathed deep, changed the subject, and soon we returned to our interesting talks about books, her many activities and organizations that she belonged to. To reduce the frequency of hot-button moments, I had to convince Mom I was no longer her baby. Fortunately, she was up for the challenge, and our adult-style conversations became increasingly comfortable. At first, I thought I was doing her a favor, but over time, I discovered that the things her friends admired about her, I admired too. I already knew she loved her family, but I was amazed to learn that every day at 6 a.m. she got up early and wrote letters to relatives she hadn't seen in years. She was also in charge of a number of volunteer organizations for whom she would line up speakers and then spend hours during her morning writing sessions crafting the few words she would say to introduce them. She also wrote book reviews and presented them to her reading groups, turning reading into a vibrant social activity. Mom found many ways to keep her spirits high. She turned every visit to synagogue into a pilgrimage that lifted and inspired her. Once she confided that she listened to preachers on television. She said, "When they say Jesus, I just hear the word God." One of her favorite tricks came from Oprah, each day listing 5 things for which she was grateful. Her willingness to see the positive in life made her a pleasure to be around. Exercise was another pillar of her Aging Gracefully program. In the winter, she walked laps in the hallway of her building, and in the summer swam laps in the pool. She did yoga every day. One of the last photos I have of her shows her posing proudly with the women in her exercise group, many of whom are half her age. She was curious about everyone she met, instantly turning strangers into friends. Once, when an infected toe required amputation, I waited anxiously in her hospital room, worried that the operation might upset her. When I heard the gurney rolling up the hall, I was relieved to hear her deepen conversation with the orderly. The first thing she said to me when she saw me was, "This young man is going to night school to earn his nursing degree. Isn't that marvelous?" Mom had her share of tragedy. The death of her 37-year-old son Ed was a crippling blow, but she directed her love for him onto his wife and children. She lifted her spirits by playing the piano. She became even more active in her organizations and clung even more firmly to her religion and embraced the joy and meaning of life. Year after year, she gave herself to others, and as a result, she was surrounded by people who loved her. During her final stay in the hospital, one of her nurses said to me, "I love your mother. She's a great woman." She was nearing the end of her 87-year life, but she had one more lesson to teach me. During those last days, she turned to me and said, "I lived a good life." The peace and confidence in her voice caught me by surprise. Later, I realized she was gently teaching me a lesson, not only about living, but about dying. As I grew older, Mom kept doing her job, preparing a roadmap that extended past childhood all the way into midlife and beyond. And in order to teach those lessons, she had to keep growing too. It took me many years to understand that I didn't really outgrow my mom. In fact, I have a lot of work to do to keep up.